Hello, friends. This week's devotion is titled Obedience Strategy, Truth of Faith. God's truth is ever faithful. Psalm 12, verse 6 tells us, "For every word God speaks is sure, and every promise pure. His truth is tested, found to be flawless, and ever faithful. It's as pure as silver refined 7 times in a crucible of clay." The faith God deposits in our spirits facilitates us knowing Him and trusting Him in His will. God's faith in us is purposed to persuade our souls more toward His nature, all of Him. God's truth of faith in us clearly delineates, interprets, and reveals our deep persuasions of beliefs, all of them. Friends, this is not a time to be weakened by double-mindedness, as confusion is of the enemy of our souls. It's a time when our convictions must be firmly rooted in the Spirit of Truth's standard in order to stand in the days ahead. God's will is that truth and justice will stand. Psalm 45 verse 4 says, "In your glory and grandeur go forth in victory. Through your faithfulness and meekness, the cause of truth and justice will stand. Awe-inspiring miracles are accomplished by your power, leaving everyone dazed and astonished." So friends, here we are 2 days before Election Day in the USA. Are the realities we believe God's truth? Is our hope fully in God and His precepts? Do we believe in the Bible enough to vote the Bible? Have we prayed and asked God to reveal His choice leader to us? We are in a time where God is reseating those with a heart of righteousness, and only God can judge the whole heart. Isaiah 26 verse 2 says, "Open the gates that the righteous nation may enter, the nation that keeps faith." So we see here that gates are commanded to open for the faithful nation, the nation that keeps truth and is established in trustworthiness. Psalm 31 verse 24 instructs us to be strong and let your heart take courage, all you who hope in the Lord. So we see here that keeping faithfulness involves forward motions of remaining strong, taking courage, and knowing God as our hope. Proverbs 13 verse 17 reveals that an unreliable messenger stumbles into trouble, but a reliable messenger brings healing. In this verse, when we take a deeper look into the word messenger, we see that it can mean an evil or righteous ambassador or king. In the same verse, we see that the word healing can mean to bring health and prosperity, even cures for national woes. Therefore, it's important that we choose a faithful national leader, one who is yielded to God in his heart. In Acts 2 verse 41, we see that the blessing of multiplicity comes through the belief in and the receiving of God's truth. But in 2 Chronicles 36 verse 16, we see that the consequence of limitation, which is a lack of remedy, comes through false beliefs and a rejection of God's truth. Friends, anytime we mock, whether to dishonor God's righteous people or to devise a false plan of our own, a form of death occurs. In this regard, we would be wise to pray like Queen Esther for God's righteousness to prevail, than to think we know everything and try to strong-arm our selfish and perverse way like Queen Jezebel. 2 Thessalonians 2 verse 12 forewarns us by saying, "So then all who found their pleasure in unrighteousness and did not believe the truth will be judged." Friends, God will open our spiritual eyes to see as He does if we humble ourselves and ask Him. Let us not close our ears to the truth and believe nothing but fables and myths. Let's remember that God's authentic truth of faith is at work in our hearts to persuade us toward His abundant life. So what else can we do? The Word of God reveals that we can pray for ears to hear God's truth, receive His healing, and be awakened from the limitations of selfishness and false pride. 2 Timothy 4 verse 3 tells us, "For the time is coming when they will no longer listen and respond to the healing words of truth, because they will become selfish and proud. They will seek out teachers with soothing words that line up with their desires, saying just what they want to hear." We can pray to remember truth. Psalm 119 verse 43 says, "May I never forget your truth, for I rely upon your precepts." We can pray for God's love to shape our lives so we can stand up to mockery. Psalm 119 verses 41 and 42 in the Message version say, "Let your love, God, shape my life with salvation, exactly as you promised. Then I'll be able to stand up to mockery because I trusted your word. Friends, we can know God more, believe that He will choose the righteous leader who will co-labor with Him to heal our land, and begin to speak God's truth by voting faithfully unto Him on or before November 3rd, 2020. To God be the glory. Join me next week for part 2 of Obedience Strategy, Truth of Faith.